Welcome to another episode of Empower Apps. I'm your host, Leo Dion. Today I am joined by Kyle Lee, otherwise known as Kilo Loco. Kyle, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Absolutely. It's been a while, Leo. It's good to see you. Happy to be here.
I
Hello,
know, I
everybody.
know. For those who don't know you, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, my name is Kyle, also known as Kilo Loco online. So, that's the name that I go by on Twitter or X and YouTube. And that's where I make a lot of I've made a lot of YouTube tutorials on iOS development, Android development, Flutter development, a lot of stuff around mobile development. And I've been in the industry since 2015. So, like about what is it, 8 years now. And I've worked at a startup called Bird, which is a scooter company. I've done freelancing, and I just got laid off from AWS last year. So a little bit of experience under my belt.
Yes, if you're not following Kilo on social media, you definitely should be doing that. Yeah, we had you on to talk about AWS Amplify, I believe, last time.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, this time we have a few exciting topics to talk about. There's a big thing coming out from Apple. Of course, I'm talking about the new changes to the App Store. Not talking about anything else that's coming out. So, yeah, so we've got some new stuff. I think it's going to be in 17.4 maybe, if not 18, regarding the new alternative app stores for Europe, I believe. You want to kind of explain what's going on there and what this might mean for developers like myself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the high level overview is, a lot of you are probably familiar and have heard about this court battle that's going on between Apple and Epic Games, which is the creator of Fortnite. And this happened a couple of years ago. So if you've been in the industry for a while, you might have heard about this. And essentially, a lot of the rulings on the court case have been made, and it led to one of the rulings going in the favor of Epic Games, and this is primarily happening over in Europe, in the European countries right now. And the ruling kind of led to Apple being forced to allow apps to purchase to make in-app purchases through a third-party link. So essentially, what the ruling says is that your app can actually go to their website to make the purchase of their subscription, or if you want to buy tokens for a game, or whatever your app is offering, it doesn't have to go through the App Store. And the reason why you wouldn't want to go through the App Store is because Apple takes this 30% commission off of every purchase that is being made in your app. So the idea is you would have something that most people are familiar with, Netflix, right? Generally, you can't sign up for Netflix within the iOS app or the Apple TV app. What you have to do is you have to go to netflix.com. You have to go
Right.
buy the subscription, whatever it costs, like $15.99, and then you would have to log into your account through your iOS app, right? Well, now theoretically, you would be able to purchase your subscription through the website on Netflix, still not through the App Store, but you would still be able to do it through the app. It could link you to that website, and then you could make the purchase there and then return back to the app. The problem is that the way that Apple complied to this ruling was kind of in a very controversial way, to where, yes, you can link out to your paywall on your website, but there's going to be these huge roadblocks that are going to essentially scare customers off and are going to strongly discourage any customer from purchasing your product through your website so that you don't have to pay Apple so much. Well, you can do that, but there's a lot of hoops that the customer has to go through, which is already like horrible user experience and is going to essentially prevent all customers from wanting to make that purchase. And then on top of that, they're going to still charge you 27% to make that purchase. So anything that you would have made by not having to pay Apple by allowing the customer to purchase through the App Store, you still have to pay them that minus 3%, and that other 3% is most likely going to something like Stripe, which is going to be your payment provider. I hope I was able to explain that in a easy to understand way.
So you can purchase outside the App Store, but the money still goes to Apple.
So the way that this works is Apple is demanding to have statements, like financial records and transaction statements sent to Apple from your business to you would send those statements to Apple so that they can verify which transactions came from their app, so that you are still forced to pay them the 27% or 12% if you're part of the small what is it called, small business program. But
Right.
but yeah, so you are forced to send over your statements to Apple.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, I'm just like, well, oh my gosh. I mean, and I'm assuming there's probably whole loop like what. Okay, what as a developer would you have to do to implement something like
Yeah,
this?
so I haven't gone through the actual implementation, but I have kind of seen screenshots of what is required. So now remember, we're in our let's say we're Netflix. We're in our Netflix app and we're about to send a customer to our paywall so that they can get their monthly subscription, right? Well, I'm trying to avoid paying Apple the full 30%. I would just want to pay them the 27%, which it actually doesn't make any business sense with the way that Apple
Right,
has implemented it. But let's say that we did want
right.
to do it. Well, what the customer is going to experience is now this customer, if they were already signed in, some apps you're already signed in when you want to make purchases, not Netflix because you would still need to make a purchase to have an account and stuff like that. But
Right.
if you were signed in, you are now going to first see a screen that's going to warn you, hey, Apple is not responsible for anything that happens beyond this point. If there are any malicious, things that go on past this in this browser and you do make purchases, Apple is not liable. You cannot get refunds. You are responsible for losing your own money. It's this giant scare tactic screen, and obviously
Yeah, it
it
sounds
doesn't
like it.
it Apple is very good about their words about how it's like not actually saying anything bad about what's happening, but they are warning and saying like all of these different things can happen in a
Right.
more professional sense. And then if you do continue to move forward, then you have to actually sign in if your account requires signing in to make the purchase with your account. And then you would make the purchase and then you would be dropped back into the app. So it is a less than ideal experience for the customer.
Yeah, I would
And
say so.
yeah, and most businesses and successful app developers understand that when a customer is about to make a purchase, the last thing you need to do is add friction and scare them off. You have to reduce as much friction to the purchasing process as possible, or else you're going to eliminate a large chunk of your potential buyers.
Wow. What? That's crazy. What? I want to jump back and ask again the developer question. So, like, let's say you have an app and you want to add this. Do you have to like set? Do you know as far as like what kind of like certificates or provisioning profile stuff or IDs or any of that kind of stuff? Or
So,
like, is there a
um,
certain
so
box you need to check
it's
in Xcode or what?
I think so. Again, I haven't implemented this myself yet, but I would assume it's a special type
Thankfully.
of yeah, thankfully. I think it's like a special type of one of those like SF web views that you would
Okay.
display.
Like an associated site
Yeah,
file or
so it
something
I
like
think
that.
it's a
Yeah.
specific kind of view that you would display. Uh,
Okay.
so you would just present that like, and it'd probably pop
Okay.
up
Oh, like a
like a
web view.
modal,
Okay.
right? Like over the screen,
Yeah.
and then it just I would assume it probably just contains a link because you can't pass any user data through it. So and
Right.
Apple wants to
Right.
monitor it. So I would assume it's its own thing.
This is yeah. I mean, I first I think like Apple can do whatever the heck they want with their platform in a lot of ways. But, so I kind of don't like that the EU is making them do this, but at the same time, I feel like Apple continues to like really drag its feet on a lot of this like stuff, and it seems like it's all about the money. Um, and they use double speak about like, oh, it's about privacy, it's about security, but it just feels like it's just about the money and like what it does is it like undermines the brand because then it's like when they do say something sincere about privacy, because they do a lot of good stuff in that space, then it's like, do I really trust that they're going to be right even when they are right? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know. What's your go ahead? What's your if you have a rant? This is the
Yeah,
part of
so
the
like I
episode
just
where
want
you
to
can rant about it.
I do want to like preface that like I used to be an Apple fanboy and I like am very strongly not that anymore. So like you can understand my position on why like I may have explained exactly what this ruling led to. But if you like look online and if you kind of go through some of the articles that have been released by like notable publishers like 9 to 5 Mac, you will see that this overall is kind of a bad faith implementation of what has been ruled in court. So I just want to like preface like this is where I kind of stand. I am not an Apple fanboy anymore, so my views may differ from yours. Also, yes, Apple is like really great at doing things with security, but just like you said, Leo, it does feel like it's all about the money because yes, I understand that, oh, well, Apple's getting their cut 30% from the purchases because you're doing business on their platform. I understand that. But when the App Store first launched, there weren't subscriptions. It was all like in-app purchases and stuff like that. And
Right.
the App Store was much simpler back then. And Apple was taking a cut because your app was essentially being advertised on the App Store. But
Right.
now there's so much work that has to go into just App Store optimization alone that they're not really doing a whole lot other than simply hosting your app, and it's because you're forced to, right? a lot of a lot of Mac apps don't go through the Mac App Store. One, because they don't want to pay that 30%, and two, if they're gonna be doing all of this branding and marketing for their product, it's just going to simply live on their website, and you can simply download it to your Mac. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the way that that it's going now, to where companies want to be able to allow you to sideload or simply download your iOS app onto your device from their website because they're already notable brands. They don't need the marketing or the placement that the App Store provides. Something like Netflix, it doesn't need to be in the App Store. If you found out that Netflix was in the App Store and you wanted Netflix on your iPhone, you would go to netflix.com and download Netflix onto your iPhone if that was something that was allowed, right? So at this point, like, what is Apple doing for you other than allowing you to use their device? And I think that's kind of like a really big argument, and that's why you're going to start hearing about a lot of different companies working on building their own app store that third-party apps
Right.
can actually list their app, probably for free, probably at no extra cost, and it'll probably just be like a big middle finger to Apple.
Um, I I feel like we're slowly inching towards the topic we didn't want to talk about, but I feel like we're gonna get there because I think these two are kind of related in a way. But explain, if you don't mind, explain a little bit what you mean by Apple fanboy and what you mean by not being an Apple fanboy, and that's okay. You're allowed to be not an Apple fanboy on this podcast.
So
you're allowed.
let's see. It took a while to get there. So like when I first entered the world of iOS development, like I was Apple fanboy. Like it was like Apple was the best company. I wanted to have a new iPhone every year, not even every 2 years, like every year.
Okay.
I wanted to have one. And then like I had the iPad, the watch, whatever. It really started with I think it started with my dad actually buying me Amazon Echoes. So
Okay.
like now I had this thing where I'm not actually referring to Apple's assistant. I'm not going to say the name so that it's not setting off anybody's thing. But yeah,
Thank you.
I wasn't using Apple's assistant. I was using Amazon's assistant. So that was like one thing. And then I think the HomePod had came out after that. And the HomePod is like really, really overpriced in my opinion. And it's not.
Yeah. Yes.
I haven't actually seen one in person, like at somebody's house. But like I don't run in these circles of like extremely wealthy people, but I haven't seen them out in the wild.
No.
And yeah, so have you had like, because I've heard a lot from the tech community purchasing this, right? But like I haven't.
I have not purchased a single HomePod. I have purchased. I want to say like I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 HomePod minis. I purchased them used, so I got a considerable discount.
Okay.
Or I purchased them on sale. And as far as like playing music, they're great. So I'll say that. We do have an Echo attached to our thermostat. It's fine. I'm not a big voice assistant fan. I just like having music. So, like in that sense, they're fine. They do their job. They're really good quality sound, and that's what I wanted. I mean, they're considerably cheaper than the HomePod, which I think is like, I don't know. You're totally 100% correct. They're totally overpriced.
Yeah, but I mean that's like kind of Apple's thing, right? Like they're known for kind of being
Oh, totally.
like it's like a social, it's like social signaling essentially on
Totally.
a lot of Apple
Totally.
products. But yeah, I think it kind of started there, and then I started having issues with my Macs. Like I had my 2009 Mac for like 7 years until I actually got into the field of development. So from like 2009 all the way to like 2016, I was able to use my MacBook Pro, which was amazing. And then I got a new one, and that one seemed to like after a year or two, it seemed to like not even be able to keep up with some of the updates, which was like really interesting because it seemed like Macs had gotten a lot better than they used to be in the past. And then I started experiencing.
Which year of MacBook did you buy, if you mind me
I want to say
asking?
it was like a 2015 or 2016.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the doldrums, I guess, of MacBooks. Were those the years between when the keyboard issues to when they finally transitioned
Yeah,
to
it
silicon.
was
But
like
anyways, yeah,
it was overheating. The battery ended up dying like
yeah,
really quick, and then I was just like, well, this is kind of lame. Like, but
yeah.
I was using it a lot, and I was using it for video production too. So, like,
Hmm.
I was like really stressing this thing out. So then I ended up having to buy another one, in like 2017, like 2017, 2018, and
Yeah,
mine was still like relatively. It felt like it was still relatively new. Like, in my opinion, computers are
yeah,
supposed to last about 5 years. So
hmm, yeah, 100%.
yeah, it's just like I didn't like that. And then the thing that really got me angry was the selling point of the Apple ecosystem let me down, and it started to break, which is this iCloud sync, having everything work between devices started to break down. And I don't know
Hmm.
what happened. I don't know if it was something that I did or it was a bug in iCloud, but all of a sudden on my newer MacBook, duplicates, I like these .iCloud files started showing up, and they started duplicating across my entire computer. Everything that was synced, it was being duplicated, and then I ran out of physical storage. I think I ran out of like physical storage. It wasn't like it didn't transfer to the cloud, the duplicates, I guess, but like it burned up my storage, and then every time I would remove all those after a couple of days, it would run out of storage again. So now I actually don't even rely on syncing across devices. I live like all my projects, they just live in GitHub, and I pull them down from
Okay.
whatever computer. Um, but I do not rely on iCloud at all. And that's like that, if you think about it, like why a lot of people like Apple, it's because like everything just works together. And if you take that
Right.
away,
Yeah.
it's not anything fabulous anymore.
No, that's 100%. Like the walled garden, as it's called. It's how do I put it? You should be you should benefit from being a fan of Apple products and buying into the ecosystem and not feel like you're burdened by it. Yeah, and just the fact that you bought laptops during the worst period. I'll say I love my new laptop. I love the MacBook Air. I skipped like all the laptops from like 2016. Like I had a 2015, and I just kept that thing until they switched over to Apple Silicon because I knew those laptops were garbage. And like yeah, you just like you got the worst of it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue with you because I get it. Like I totally get it. I'll just say I am happy with Apple products. They do work really well together when they do work. I'm not trying to convince you. That's not my point. I'm just saying like I like it. I like the ecosystem. I never go with Windows if I ever had the chance. I hate Windows. I've been on Windows. I think the Mac is probably their best product in their suite. I think the watch is pretty good too. Uh, I think yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said. Like it is what it is. So do you have like an Android now or
Oh
are
no
you
no
on
no no no
Windows
no
or
no
okay,
no.
okay.
So
Okay,
the
okay.
iPhone is still a really good device on its own.
Yeah.
Really amazing device. I so again, like Apple has let me down a lot. So I bought an M1 Mac Mini, and this was like I wasn't one of the first. I bought it a couple of months after it came out, and there was all these raving reviews about it. I buy mine, just simply a lot of stuff doesn't work. A lot of stuff, oh, you have to talk about Rosetta, and like things just simply
Oh,
didn't work.
really?
It was still like
Okay.
very early on. I
Yeah,
still have
right.
issues with it. Like I can't display like one of my monitors, like because I did something. I don't know. It was bad. And then I had my Apple Watch on up until like maybe like 3 weeks ago when it just simply was not syncing to my phone. So now it's again just useless. Like if you think about it, like you
Yeah.
take away that one thing that Apple offers you, where it's like everything works together. If you take that away, like how much do you really like your devices? And yeah, it's just like that my account is like corrupted or something like that. So I'm only
Have you
limited to
contacted support?
I haven't contacted support, so like that's on my fault.
Okay.
That's my fault. Like I haven't gone the necessary
I
steps to
have like
resolve.
I've had issues where I've contacted support, and usually they've been pretty good about it.
I should try
I
that.
think, or even like a DTS ticket. Like use your DTS. You get two of them. Like
Yeah.
use them. Like I really encourage people to take advantage of those. Like I had one issue. There was some iPad app that either it was a cat, either it was the iPad app or the Catalyst app that kept showing up as in my app store as being updated, even though I didn't have the app anymore. And like they fixed the issue, and it could have been something on their end for all I know. I don't know. So yeah, I'll just encourage people, take advantage of it. If you're paying this premium, like, yeah, they should have the stuff fixed. I think the one issue that's bugged me lately is, and I've had this on my studio, it's just like USB stuff getting disconnected, just out of nowhere. Like that's, and I need to send a support ticket. And I just haven't had the chance to do it. And I'm talking not feedback, which has its own set of issues. I'm talking like actual Apple support. Take advantage of that for sure.
Yeah. I will say over the years, before we go on to the next topic, I will say that
Yeah.
I still love my iPhone, and I've had an Android. Like I haven't had it as my primary, but because I was getting into Android development before, and I did cross-platform as well. I've worked with an Android, and I still primarily prefer iPhone. Like I strongly prefer iPhone over Android.
Yeah.
And then I will also say that I've worked with a couple of different programming languages now, and Swift is still by far my favorite programming language. It's just it in my opinion, it was much more elegant in Swift 3 before Apple forced their changes on it with all these view modifiers and things like that. But overall, I still love programming in Swift. It is my favorite language. Not Swift
What's
UI
your
so
second
much,
favorite?
but what's my second favorite? Dart. Dart, which is
Okay.
used for Flutter programming.
Right. Right.
It would be Swift, Dart, Python, then Kotlin. And
Oh wow, Kotlin's.
Kotlin's a pretty strong programming language. I just didn't take the time to learn it, but
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
there's a lot of really cool features in Dart. Python, you can do a lot really quickly, and the community's huge. A lot of support around that. And then Kotlin's very similar to Swift. If you want to be like bilingual in programming languages, and you already know Swift, Kotlin's not a bad one to check out.
I do, Kyle. I'm gonna pivot. I know we said we were gonna talk about it, but I feel like based on what we've already been talking about, we kind of have to. So we're recording this a few days before the product is out, the Vision Pro. Did you? And I kept telling Kyle I don't want to talk about it because we're gonna talk about it, and like we're gonna say all this stuff even though the product comes out and people are gonna say it's good or bad. So please forgive us if by the time this episode is out things are different. But it does have, to me, it has a big bearing on what we've already talked about these App Store changes. And like, to me, for one thing, I was a early on developer with the Apple Watch, and I wouldn't say I got burned on it, but like so much can change in an API when like to where that first, what's it called, first launch advantage
Yeah.
is kind of lost.
First mover
Like
advantage,
in my
I think people call it.
Thank you, Kyle. First mover advantage. I think you lose a lot of that because the APIs change so much in that period. I also like I'm not super enthusiastic because of the app ecosystem and kind of what we're getting at early on. And to me, like I think there's been stuff about like I think it's easy to look at the iPhone and be like, well, yeah, you can be on the iPhone because there's a trillion people on the iPhone. But like the iPad to me has been the biggest victim of the shortcomings of the App Store. And I think I think like just as far as like using the iPad, I think like I think it's been hurt a lot by the limitations of the App Store. And a lot of people don't want to invest money and time in putting an iPad app together. And even some people like purposefully like deny an app that could easily be like transitioned from iPhone to iPad. And I'm kind of feeling like the same thing with the Vision Pro, where it's like, first of all, this, just as we said, it's overpriced probably. But also like it's severely restricted for what I want to do with it. And we're talking, I don't know if you've been to a lab, but I'm talking as fully ignorant as not being in a lab. But I'm like, I don't see the long-term business like built around this device right now in 2024. And to me, like the App Store stuff is a big part of, well, that costs way too much money that nobody's going to want to buy it right away unless you're really enthusiastic. And it's great that they sold out, but it is what it is. And see, like it's a totally new class of device. It's not. It's yeah, okay. There's other devices out there, but they're specifically targeted towards gaming. Like this is a workplace VR device essentially. I don't know. So those are my thoughts on it. What like I don't know. What do you disagree? Agree? Like where do you think I'm wrong on it?
So I think that everything that you said is pretty valid. So again, we're talking about the Apple Vision Pro, and what do we think is going to happen with it? And I don't think anything's going to change even after launch of this product. So by the time you guys are listening to this or watching it, Apple Vision Pro is out. There will be a lot more reviews online. But overall, what we can do is we can talk about what is the future. What is the future for Apple Vision Pro? Because that's not going to change even after launch.
Right.
Because it really has to do with what is Apple doing. And what I'll put my stance out there right now just so that you can understand where I'm coming from and whether or not you want to listen to me. Overall, I don't think that the Apple Vision Pro provides the value for the price of $3,500, and it is not like when the competitor is going to be something like Meta's what is it, the Meta Quest 3, which is $500. So there's a $3,000 discrepancy. I don't think that there's a $3,000 improvement in technology there. Additionally, this thing costs more than your computer that you're working on every single day, and you cannot load Xcode on it. Just keep that in mind.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. This
Well,
is
no,
somebody who
mine-
has a Mac Studio.
Well,
Okay, your computer.
most
Okay.
people's computers.
Most people's
the
computer.
The
Yeah,
large
there we go.
majority of computers.
The normal people.
Right. $3,500 is a lot, and like you could get a maxed out. I haven't checked a MacBook Pro in a long time, but you could probably get a really high end MacBook Pro that's going to actually bring money back to you for that price. Is what I'm trying to say. So what does Apple Vision Pro do really well? Well, it's probably going to be the best in the industry at AR technology, which I don't think actually exists right now. So what exists right now is
Quick question. Have you been to a lab?
I have not been to a lab, so like clarify, like
Okay.
I don't have
Yeah,
hands-on
okay.
experience with this. I'm going based off of what I've seen online, what I've done like research on, and my understanding is that Apple is like is going to be the number one in the AR space. So augmented reality, not virtual reality, where you're closed into a pre-configured environment. They are going to be changing the environment around, like they're going to be adding things into your surroundings, and that's what it's going to be doing extremely well. The problem with that is at the $3,500 price point, $3,500. How many people can afford this? Like how many normal people can afford this? Even for the tech industry, like I'm looking at people. making their decision on whether to buy this thing online or not, a lot of them have to like dip into saving. Like they don't just have, $4,000 because you have to still pay tax. They don't just have $4,000 just laying around to buy a toy, like just like without thinking about it. The majority of people have to think about this purchase, and that's to an industry where six figures is extremely common, right? So this is a pretty sizable purchase for anybody. And I just think that Apple hasn't even actually announced what their intentions are with this device, because Apple likes to go into things like education and things like their medicine. So revolving around your medical records or whatever. So like, what is Apple actually planning for this device? Are they planning it strictly for entertainment? And this is the Pro
I mean,
device.
I don't think they know. I don't think they know, and I think it's like the Apple Watch, being having gone through that. It's like they had no idea what they were going to do with it. There's like you can send heart rate beeps, and
so they went. So they're looking at
and then they
at
pivoted
health.
to health, and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, this is like they finally figured out. Okay, this is where the watch is really helpful.
But even then, they have
so I
like
think
the,
it's
the
still
Pro Watch too, and that's like geared towards like very specific, like what is it, like rock climbing or scuba diving and things like that too.
yes, yeah, yeah. Okay, Kyle, I'm gonna be sarcastic, but what's gonna make the Vision Pro such an excellent device is the apps that are on it. Because, and I'm being sarcastic because this goes back to our earlier discussion. They've built, like, I feel like they've burned so many bridges for like, not for indies so much, but for like bigger businesses that like the apps that people really want to use. Then now we see like Netflix is like, yeah, we're not going to be on the Vision. Facebook's not going to be on the Vision Pro. And like, yeah, I think like that's going to hurt, that relationship is going to hurt the Vision Pro. And I see a lot of people, indies essentially spending $4,000 building just for the reason of, developing an app for it. And, I'm just like, are you going to make it? Like, I just can't imagine you're ever going to make that money back for the, 12 people, or two people, honestly, who own it.
Right? Some people will make like an amazing meditation app or something like that. And
okay.
and that anybody that has purchased this device has money, so you charging them a sizable subscription is not out of the question at this point. That is something that can be done. I don't want anybody to feel like we're dumping on their purchase of the Apple Vision Pro. If you bought it, then I'm sure that you have very good reasons, and you probably have a strategy in mind of how you're going to recoup your losses.
And price your app accordingly if that's your like. If you're gonna buy it for fun, totally buy it for fun. I'm not gonna shame anybody for that. Like, but I mean, like, you need to price your app high enough to get the money back. Like price it high. Like all was a thing in indies is like, no, you're not charging enough.
Yeah,
no, you're not charging enough. And I think this is a good case of that.
$7.99 subscription fee, like no, like triple it.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, totally. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. What was the other thing I was going to mention was, first mover. I don't, it's a thing, but I also, can you name me one app that came out when the iPhone first came out that's still around? When I think of that, go ahead.
It's not about being still around, right? Like, because there have been successes like Flappy Bird that have made like a cultural impact. Everybody knows what Flappy Bird is, and then it left the App Store because I think the developer just didn't want to deal with it. He like made enough money and he was able to split. So first mover advantage does exist, but keep in mind that the App Store is not going to be empty. you're actually going to be competing with people that know what they're doing for this device. And the reason for that is because anybody that was interested in the AR and VR space actually have already made apps for different VR headsets like the MetaQuest Pro. And all they have to do is take that they're most likely using Unity or Unreal, and they're going to port their app into the Apple Vision Pro, and they will be most likely available on day one. So it's not like it's going to be an empty market. If you think if you think that's going to be the strong selling point of you having a very simplistic app in the App Store, I mean, simple apps, they do gain a lot of traction sometimes, but it's not like the App Store is going to be completely empty. So just keep that in mind. Like, you are competing with people that have existed in this space for a long time and don't need to learn AR or Reality Kit. Like, they are using existing tools that work across different platforms. And like, honestly, that would be probably, if you're interested in being big on the Apple Vision Pro market, just keep in mind that there are going to be competitors that will do the same thing that you can do, that work with other devices, especially like if you're interacting with other people, like games where it's two players. You're not just playing against other Apple Vision Pro players, you're playing against anybody that can have a headset and that it's available on that device. Play against each other, and that's that multi-platforming aspect is important, just like the way that you're on any of your apps that you can interact with an Android user. It's the same concept.
Yeah. 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 That's a really, really good point. I feel like we talked about quite a bit, and almost don't want to, like, I think we should like skip our main topic that we were going to talk about, because at this point I feel like there's so much to talk about
at this point. We've gone too far.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Is there anything else you want to mention regarding Vision Pro App Store? Like, to me, the problem is with the way, it works, is growth is very important. And so they have to keep pumping up these like services like numbers, right? Because they've already sold iPhones to everybody in the world that is ever going to own one. And so like, yeah, like I feel like there's an incentive on them to just keep milking that services money for everything it can get. Like, and unfortunately, I feel like it's kind of hurting the brand and hurting the business in the long term, if you know what I mean. Because like, if they're not investing the time and money in just simple like, hey, fix iCloud, and like, or just like help developers more with the App Store, because I find like a lot of the App Store stuff, there's a lot of great talks that they have, but they're very focused on like app events or stuff like that. I'm not sure that really fit with a lot of developers' apps out there. I don't know. And it, like, to me, like, there's just, I don't know. It just seems like the App Store, there's really good stuff there, and it's gotten a lot better, but it feels like there's something missing as far as for business to create a long-term business around the App Store. Seems much less attainable than it used to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I will say that, like, I do kind of agree that Apple can be doing a lot more, a lot of more things. I think Apple can do a lot more in terms of helping developers. In terms of App Store, you really only get some official guidance on that if you're looking into search ads. I haven't really come across any other official guidance. So if anybody out there knows how to be,
well, they've been doing those tech talks every few months or so that you can like call into.
Yeah, but like having like more official documentation and truly understanding how to, kind of compete with some of these bigger apps in these spaces. A lot of it is just kind of trial and error. Like,
right.
It's there's so much that you have to just test yourself. And I think having a little bit more transparency on the App Store, especially with everything that's happening after that court ruling, would be a good move on Apple's half to
Yeah.
just like give a little bit more transparency on how these things are ranking, like what's most important. Give us a actual good example, because Apple's like notorious for like not even following what they're imposing on the rest of the world. So it's just like, well, in development, you want to change something about how something that's simply provided by a Swift UI or even UI kit. Apple can do it, and you could do it too if you dig and you use like hidden APIs and things like that. You can modify views exactly how Apple does it, and it's like those little things. It's just like Apple should be held to the same standards that they're imposing on everybody else. Like, I understand that it's their product; they can do whatever they want, but like at the same time, it leaves. I mean, I'm just speaking from personal experience. It leaves people like me feeling like, okay, well, you're not as glamorous as you once were, even though a lot of
Yeah.
these things have existed for a while. It's just like there's a lot more starting to stack up against you, and it's giving these arguments, and I don't
Well,
think
I
that
do
they
think it's
should.
going to hurt. I mean, I think it's going to hurt them in the long term, though, if they keep kind of like making the situation worse and worse. I think you're going to see that with the Vision Pro. I think you're going to see like there's not going to be this plethora of apps that Apple expects to be out there, because I think they've burned so many bridges.
Well, you have to keep it in
And
mind that it could be strategic, right? Because the person that's going to be able to purchase this thing, like this may actually not even be a consumer product, which is why it's priced the way that it is, right? This could be the business product that is available for prosumer consumption, right? So what I mean by that is that if Apple wants there to be apps available for everybody, let's release the Apple Vision Pro so that nobody gets it. Let all the developers get it, all the big companies get it, so that they can work on it officially. Put out apps in the App Store, and then we release the Apple Vision Air, and that's like a $800 headset, and then it's much more affordable.
I think
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the problem though is that when you talk to big businesses or like education, in the what they care about is that it has Microsoft Teams, or they can run Chrome OS apps. And like if Apple's going to burn that bridge, they're never going to sell to those sectors, because like Microsoft or Google just don't want to put out apps on it, and they'd rather put out their own device. Hey folks, Editor Leo. I just wanted to jump in here and mention that during editing, I noticed that Microsoft is planning to release, if not has released, Microsoft Teams for the Vision Pro. So that's exciting if you're a big fan of Teams. And then also the Office Suite as well. So I'll link to an article talking about that, as well as I will give more, I'll have an article about Netflix announcement regarding the Vision Pro, YouTube, Google's announcement regarding YouTube and the Vision Pro, as well as a link to an article talking about Christian Selig's new app, Juno, which is YouTube app for the Vision Pro. So check that out in the show notes below. Okay, now you can watch the rest of the episode.
Yeah, so
You know
that
what I
so
mean?
so what you're saying is like
That's the
almost directly related to. Did you see the Netflix response?
No. What was the Netflix
Okay,
response?
so Apple Vision Pro will not have a native Netflix app available on it on launch, and I don't think that it will be available at all during 2024, is my understanding. So Netflix
Okay.
responded saying that right now they don't think that it's a good time to the ROI is not there to invest in a native Netflix app. A native Netflix app on the Apple Vision Pro,
Okay.
because the customer base simply is not going to be there at launch. They're not opposed to doing it in the future, to clarify. It's just like right now there's no ROI on it. There's no return on investment because it's going to cost so much to do the development to provide an amazing experience that would be expected from a movie platform on a headset, that they're simply just not going to enter the space. And if you want to watch Netflix on your Apple Vision Pro, you have to go to the website.
Okay, interesting. So you can pull up Netflix basically through Safari.
Yeah, through Safari. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that the Vision Pro is specifically for businesses, or do you think that the Vision Pro is purposely overpriced so that they're going to come out with a cheaper version for consumers? Like, I just want to clarify that part. Does that make sense?
I think it's a little bit of both. And the reason why I say that is because the Vision Pro, right? Whenever we get Pro as a suffix, it means like this is the top of the line that you can get. And this is the best technology that we're going to offer for this line of product is Pro.
Right.
So if you put out the Apple Vision Pro as the top of the line, this is the best the technology can do, then theoretically developers can utilize all of the technology inside of that device and really figure out how to provide the most amazing experience possible. So businesses and developers can provide the best experience possible, and there's people that will go digging around figuring out, like, oh, we can do all of this using metal, and we can make it amazing, and then that will be like highlighted during WWDC or something like that, like whoever wins the awards, those type, there will be like Apple Vision Awards, so your app will be highlighted and spotlighted for doing something amazing and standing out for that reason. Also, they don't know what the market is like, and you have to keep in mind that Apple is not known for AAA games. They never did AAA games as like, they never did well. When somebody wants to do professional gaming or like even like high level gaming, competitive gaming, they go out and they buy a PC. They don't spend any amount of money on a Mac to make that happen. So they have to figure out who is actually buying this and what are the demands for this headset, because they're entering the space late as usual. They usually do everything better, and the Apple Vision Pro is probably the best piece of technology that will be out there as a headset. Like that, nobody's arguing about that. But they have to figure out who wants what from this thing, and probably have to figure out what direction to take it in. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious to see. I mean, I don't know. It's just it's so early on. Even by the time this episode comes out, like, so much is going to change on this, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot going on.
Well, just keep in mind, like, when Apple TV launched, everybody was making an Apple TV app, and I haven't downloaded an Apple TV app in a couple years. So,
I mean, I've downloaded Apple TV apps, but they're all streaming platforms. So
yes,
there you go.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, once you set up your Apple TV, and people will like say, well, like, this is not the same thing, and it's not. But like, if you're going into it with an entertainment aspect, and I mean, games are definitely a real thing, right? But yeah, like a lot of the times it's like, at least in my case, it's like once I get my device, I set it up with the apps that I normally use, and in this case where it's entertainment, it's going to be it would be Netflix, but it would be like all my streaming platforms, a couple of really good games that stand out. That's where the first mover advantage exists, right? And I'm not one that's really into like playing a bunch of different little games. So like, I just generally don't go out, and the game market is a very competitive space. So
are you talking about the iPhone?
I'm talking about in general, the game market is a competitive space.
Right.
So like,
right.
if you think that it's not going to be competitive on day one, it will be. I promise.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Um, Kyle, there was so much to talk about today. Sorry, we'll talk about modularity the next time you come
Yeah.
on. But
How many
I
people want to
appreciate.
hear about modularity? Like, can we get like a show of hands, or can we get some DMs that say, because we were supposed to talk about modularity in app development. So
But we wanted to rant about the App Store. So and the Vision Pro and Apple. So I think it. You know, maybe before we close, what's the big takeaway you would have for a developer out there?
big takeaway for a developer. Um, so I would say that overall, now more than in the past, it's kind of important to pay attention to what's going on in the news. I'm a person that hates news. I don't watch news, especially with this being an election year in the states.
Yeah.
Like, I hate news, but I would say like pay attention to what's going on in like the tech scene news, because it seems like there's a lot of big changes that are happening that will directly impact developers, and we don't necessarily know if it's for better or worse yet. And I'm referring to the ruling with the Apple and Epic Games. I'm referring to Apple Vision Pro being a new device that you can develop for. Just pay attention to the news.
AI.
AI, yeah, and then we have WWDC coming up this year, so they may actually break into that space, but I still think it's too early for Apple. They tend to wait a little bit longer than just
Right.
it's only Chat GPT has only been out for like a year, so Apple is probably going to wait like another year or two before they introduce anything, and even then it's like who knows if we're going to have an API to it or not. So yeah.
I have a dumb tech question I want to ask you before we close out that I've been wanting to ask and I forgot about it. So you've done development on Android as well.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Where do you see something like PWAs fit into this, progressive web apps? Because I see a lot of mobile folks, not Android, but folks in like, more like, there we go, more like more Android folks who are like, yeah, I don't want to have to go through the Google Play Store. I just want to build a progressive web app and do it that way. Do you think that like that's a thing that could ever happen, assuming Apple makes it more and more easy to do it on Safari on the iPhone?
Yeah, so I think that's actually something that was kind of like in the back of my mind when I was talking earlier is unfortunately, depending on this ruling, progressive web apps can become a lot more popular if Apple decides to become more difficult for developers, and it starts doing things that are going to hurt smaller developers. There's progressive web apps are definitely something that can regain a lot more popularity than they already have. And for a lot of different apps, progressive web apps make absolute sense, especially in a small development team. So just again, keep an eye on the news, because there can be a lot that changes.
Yep. Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, keep an eye on what's going on, both for your, like, if you're just a freelancer or a developer who's wants to be an employee, like, keep an eye on what's going on.
Leo,
as far as skills, you should.
That the statement that I made will scare a lot of people, especially aspiring developers, and I don't want to do that. iOS development is still like getting into iOS development is still relevant, minimum for at least 3 years. Minimum, I would say at least 5 years actually. Apps already exist. You can still get hired. I guarantee that you can still get hired. within the next 5 years for an iOS development. So if you are just starting out, you can still start learning iOS development and still get a job. I don't want to scare you away that, oh, well, maybe I was thinking about learning Swift. Now I got to go learn progressive web apps.
No, and I'm not saying that either.
That's not what I'm saying, but some people will take it that way. I know aspiring devs will take it that way, and that's not what I'm saying. If you want to get into the space, go ahead and get in. I'm just saying existing developers, indie developers, just pay attention to the news because you may want to learn another skill. If you're just starting out, there's still going to be a lot of jobs for you to get hired as an iOS developer. Don't worry about that.
I think so. I'm in Michigan, of course, and to me, I think one thing to think about is, to me, like, the 20th century had the car, and like people thought there was going to be something else, like an airplane or some weird transportation device that's going to, no, the car was the big thing of the 20th century. And I feel like the iPhone and the smartphone are the thing of the 21st century. I think we constantly, and you see this in financial stuff, is like, people are constantly looking for the next big thing. And I'm like, no, the next big thing was the iPhone. And if you put your career on the iPhone or smartphone and mobile development, you're going to be fine for the next, honestly, like I think 10, 15 years. Like, I mean, you have a skill set that is going to be, because people are just, there's not going to be a device out there that's going to replace the iPhone. It's just not going to happen, in my opinion. I think VR may be a thing that grows, but I think it's just one amongst many devices. Whereas the iPhone, to me, is the device that, like, the desktop computer and even the laptop just was not accessible enough to people, whereas the iPhone just made it so much easier for people to made technology, computers, internet accessible to a whole wide range of people. And there is plenty of money to be made in that space. So yeah, 100% iPhone developer, I think you're going to do quite well. So I agree 100%. And I think it's just a matter of the news informs you of what other skill sets or what APIs specifically might be profitable to you. There's going to be some like Core ML thing that might come out this year, and doesn't say that being an iPhone developer is detrimental. It's saying that being an iPhone developer is great, and learning how machine learning is even, like, that's going to build on top of it. It's not going to subtract that away. Did I phrase that correctly? Would you say?
Yeah. I think that you're absolutely right. Like the key is just remembering that, while the tech industry moves fast, the rest of the world does not. Right? Everything, especially government stuff. Everything else moves slow. I'm sure that there's a lot of people that know older folks that still have flip phones, right? Like,
yes. Yep.
The rest of the world moves slow, and they still need to be supported, and that means that there will be jobs to support those folks.
Yeah, 100%. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. There was just so much to talk about today. Yeah, it's just fantastic to see you, and I'm really happy that you were able to come back on.
Yeah, I'm always happy to be here, Leo. So in a couple of months after I made my Apple Vision Pro app and I made $1 billion, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about how you modularized your app. Yeah, it'll be fantastic. What everybody wants to hear about. Where can people find you online?
Yeah, you can find me on primarily on X and on YouTube at Kilo, Kilo _ Loco, LOCO. So Kilo _ LOCO.
Thank you, Kyle. People can find me on Twitter, X at LeoGDion, Mastodon at leogdion.c.im, YouTube at BreakDigit, and LinkedIn at LeoGDion. So be sure to check that out. If you enjoyed this episode, please post a review on your podcast player. I'd really appreciate it. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe and like. I'd appreciate that as well. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, and I look forward to talking to you again. Bye, everyone.